The French are going to the polls later today for the first round of parliamentary elections. President Emmanuel Macron called the snap vote after a lacklustre showing at the European Union election earlier this month. But his centrist party is now facing a disastrous result, with the latest poll showing even bigger gains for the far right.
Now, the election could radically alter the trajectory of the EU's largest country and hamstring Macron, who has been a driving force in EU decision-making for the remainder of his second and last presidential term. Well, joining us now is Professor of International History at Flinders University, Matt Fitzpatrick. Very good morning to you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the French political system, this is rather complex. While President Macron will be retaining his position as president, there could be a scenario where he would be forced to appoint a prime minister belonging to a new majority. If you could just briefly explain that system to us.
Yeah, sure. So Macron will remain the president, and we have a separate election going on now for the National Assembly. It's a two-stage election, and we're in the first stage now, and this is to find out who will be ruling as prime minister. And at the moment, that the largest party is looking like the far-right National Rally, and that could lead to a situation called cohabitation, where the president comes from one party and the Prime Minister and the Assembly are dominated by another.
What would this then mean, this cohabiting? What would that mean in terms of shaping domestic or foreign policy?
Well, it certainly means that Macron's ability to shape the national agenda will be extremely limited, although he has struggled already in the past to maintain a majority in the Assembly. But what it will mean is that you will have a situation in which the far right, should they come to power, will be able to effectively set the tone in politics on important questions regarding things like migration, but also the budget and law and order and those kinds of things.
It does look like her party, Marine Le Pen's party, National Rally, is doing very well in the opinion polls, at least, and they definitely did very well during the EU elections as well. If they were to get into if they were to be successful in the French parliamentary elections, what does this mean for Australian-French bilateral ties?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly what it would mean for Australian-French bilateral ties in the immediate kind of short to medium term. But what it will make very difficult, I suppose, is dealing with France as part of a broader EU. So when you're looking at forging new trade deals, then you have to deal with a government that is far more interested in questions of French national sovereignty and will be less interested in the kind of open market, open borders sort of policy that you might have seen in the past. That's just to give one kind of example of what it might look like.
I find it fascinating that Marine Le Pen has been able to transform her father's Nazi-leaning, Holocaust-denying party from decades ago to one that is currently attracting young French voters of today. How has she been able to do that?
It's been a broader process, I think, on the European right, and Marine Le Pen has been really key to this, where some of the more extreme messages have been massaged and made to look a little bit more palatable to a mainstream voter. None of those policies in many ways have gone away. There are still undercurrents of racism, anti-Semitism that lurk within the party itself. But when it comes to putting out a national program or platform for election, then you really see a kind of a tack towards populist policies that have to do with things like winding back pension reforms and retirement age reforms and offering what seems to be support for quote unquote the little person on the street. But in essence, the larger parts, the kind of xenophobic nature of these parties has not really changed at its core.
Well, it isn't just France, isn't it, that's facing this dilemma. You know, recent European Union elections also saw far-right groups making gains right across Europe. I wonder how different they are today compared to the hyper-nationalist fascist groups of the early 20th century.
Yeah, it's a good question. And certainly, I mean, if people are looking for fascism to return as it did in the 1930s, I mean, in terms of military uniforms and marching in the streets, and then that's not what they're going to see. Instead, what they're going to see are people in suits that are sort of mouthing, I suppose, soothing platitudes regarding the nation state and support for things that that in many ways kind of harken back to sort of simpler but times in some people's minds. But you're quite right to say that this is a pan-European process. We've seen Giorgia Meloni in Italy with her Brothers of Italy party, the Alternative for Germany party in Germany, Poland, Hungary, Romania Liberals, Slovakia, the Netherlands, even Reform UK in the UK under Nigel Farage have these kind of elements to them.
Right, Matt Fitzpatrick from Flinders University. It is a fascinating topic and we thank you very much for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having me.